Good evening, everyone. May I have your attention just for a moment? This annual dinner of the Board of Trustees is always a very special occasion. Tonight it's even more special because we are all here to celebrate a true case original, our friend and our leader, Neil Bianco. We have a terrific evening in store for Neil. There'll be, I hope, some laughs, some affection, and a few surprises along the way. I want to extend a special welcome to Neil's family, who's here at this table, his terrific wife, Jackie, his children, and his grandchildren. We're all so glad you could be with us tonight. And although this evening is Neil's, I'm very pleased to announce that at today's Board of Trustees meeting, Vice Chairman Mark Beska was elected to succeed Neil as chair, effective July 1st. We actually made Mark's election effective July 1st, not because we wanted to try him out, but because Neil is going to preside at all our commencements next week. And we wanted to make sure he was still in office when he conferred the degree. Mark is a 1981 BBA alumnus of the Lubin School. He's currently managing partner of the New York City office of Ernst & Young. And Mark, I know you'll be a great leader for the board, and we all look forward to working with you. Congratulations. I want to begin by presenting Neil with a special memento of his time as chair. For the last 14 years, Neil has begun and closed every board meeting by banging a gavel. And we don't expect you to keep order this evening, Neil, but we want to present you with this commemorative gavel, and it's inscribed, this box is inscribed in appreciation of your dedicated and inspired chairmanship, Aniello A. Bianco, 61, 1999 to 2013. Neil, I'll actually give this to you a little later. Please remember that this gavel is ceremonial only, and it's not designed to use at home to keep your grandchildren in order, because I know it won't work anyway. So we had a little team working on how we should do this evening, and some people thought that if we just gave Neil a gavel and maybe a T-shirt, that would work just fine. So we had a T-shirt made. We told the T-shirt maker that Neil was a pretty big fellow, so he made this T-shirt. And for those of you in the back of the room, it says, I served as chair for 14 years and all I got was this gavel. So we went back to the drawing boards and we decided that we really should give Neil something that would convey the affection and respect and high regard in which everyone with whom he's worked holds him. So I started working on a deck of 150 PowerPoint slides. Our team voted and thought the slides were not a very good idea. So instead we have a world premiere of a short film called Neil Bianco, Trustee and Friend. And I want to thank the stars of this film, Chair Emeritus Carl Pforzheimer, who's with us tonight, Trustees Ivan Seidenberg and Jim Healy. Ivan is here, but unfortunately Jim could not be with us. And Professor Grace Lamakia Paris, who was a classmate of Neil's and also a fellow alumni trustee with Neil. And after the film, we'll simply have dinner, and then the program will resume when we have dessert. With that, let's roll it.
You start out with a caricature of a person that everybody has a smile when you think of his name. Neil equals smile.
My first impression was because Neil is a big boy, he was bigger than life.
Neil is what I would call a gentleman, and he's also a gentleman.
It is wonderful that he has been so giving of himself.
He's fun to be with. He's someone in whom I have total confidence and total trust.
Like Neil, I'm a product of New York City, and Pace was our Ivy League. We viewed Pace as getting out of the city, so to speak, and moving upscale.
We had about 3,000 evening students, all part-time, all wearing suits, all male.
There was no campus. There was an elevator and we used the stairs. We'd walk from the 4th floor to the 14th floor, up or down. And yet, we liked it here.
I had immigrant parents. That first generation parents, college, made us, I think, very thirsty for experience and able to embrace whatever Pace was offering us.
I think both Neil and I took very seriously our undergraduate experience at Pace. The whole way through, the connection to Pace was there.
He is a man who both can speak with great authority and has absolutely no arrogance.
Neil is one of those, I believe, rare people who can deal with people who disagree with him and come away without having an enemy.
Listens to people, talks to them.
And you like the way he does it, and the how he does it, and the why he does it, and it's energizing for people around him.
The Pace motto of Opportunitas is really very much emblematic of what Neil does.
People look up to him, and they want to be on his side and his team, and I think that's what's happened.
He loves pace, and it's so palpable in everything he does that's connected with the university.
His time commitment is mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling.
He goes to every ceremony and every program, but the kids, they love him not because he just shows up, because he takes an interest in them.
And Neil is there for each and every event at commencement and has been for years and years.
I think he's created a sense on the board that we really need to be focused on the students.
Neil, having benefited from what PACE offered, made him very committed to encouraging students to participate, to develop internships, to find role models, to find mentors.
And I think that was very important to him, to try and give back what he had gotten himself. So he really just loved the place.
40% of our undergraduate body are the first in their family to go to college. And the same stories that people like Neil tell are the stories of today's undergraduates. They just have different last names. It's what makes PACE such an extraordinary place. This basic mission of helping people change their prospects in life is still what this university is all about.
We thank you for what you've done. We respect you for the leadership you've given us and the contributions you've made to the university.
Thank you for your contribution to PACE as a trustee and a chairman of the Board of Trustees during all this growth. I love the school. I know you do, and I know you'll never separate from it. Thank you, Neil.
Life after PACE does exist. You will have some more time. You'll have to get Jackie to be tolerant of having you around the house more.
Neil, congratulations on 40 years, but I want you to know I had some long talks with genetic researchers, and they told me they did your DNA sequence and you lack the retirement gene.
He was always destined for the great things he's done. But what motivates him, I believe, every day to serve the university is because he feels they've given him something that he could never replace. And that was the confidence and the tools to succeed.
The character of the university as an academic institution has changed, and changed for the better. And I think we have an enormously exciting future. And that future is Neil's legacy. Neil joined the Board of Trustees 44 years ago, initially as an alumni trustee, not long after graduating in 1961. He became chair 14 years ago, and when he invited me to have lunch with him 6 years ago, I had no idea that he was about to change my life as PACE has changed the lives of so many people in this room. I was dean of PACE Law School, and to my very great astonishment, he asked me to consider becoming interim president of the university. I think Neil was equally astonished when I said yes immediately, almost without thinking, because the opportunity to serve this great university was such an extraordinary one. Since that day, I've come to love working with Neil, and I've come to love Pace almost as much as Neil loves Pace. I say almost because Neil's love for this university is really, truly boundless. For more than 40 years, he's devoted his talents, his energy, his wisdom to this university, and Pace is all the stronger for it. Over the past 4 years, Pace has developed a tremendous amount of forward momentum, and Neil deserves a great deal of credit for leading us to this point at the board level. We've built a stronger financial foundation. We're attracting more students from more parts of the country and around the world. We have many new academic programs that are garnering national attention. And we've made major changes. We're just starting, really, in the quality of our campus environments. We have just opened this wonderful new Performing Arts Center at 140 William Street. The new residence hall at 182 Broadway is finished. It will open in the fall for most of the students who are currently living in Brooklyn. Another new residence hall will go up just a block from here on the other side of the hospital in 2 years. In Pleasantville, we will soon begin the first stage of a tremendously ambitious campus renovation. I could go on, but the point really is that no one has done more to make all of that happen than Neil Bianco. On a personal note, no one has done more to help me serve effectively than Neil. Neil has been a critical source of advice and sometimes an advisory source of criticism, all to the good and always with a calm voice of reason. As I said in the short film, he speaks with great authority and not an ounce of arrogance. He commands the respect of everyone in the room, and he always has your back. I deeply value Neil's friendship, his judgment, and his sense of humor. Neil is a real partner in guiding the future of this university. And now we have a special treat for you. As you know, Pace is the proud home of the Actors Studio Drama School. James Lipton is the founding dean of that school, and he is the creator and host of Inside the Actors Studio, which is filmed right downstairs in the Schimmel Theater. And that is seen by 80 million people, more than 80 million people worldwide. He is also my friend. Jim has interviewed stars like George Clooney and Paul Newman and Meryl Streep. And tonight we have asked him to step up from that level and interview Neil Bianco.
Looks familiar. This is my home base on the show. If you've seen the show, you may recognize the chairs, even if you don't recognize me. I'll begin with you, Neil, as I've begun with every one of my Inside the Actors Studio guests for nearly 19 years. I've always begun with their beginnings, and I would like to begin with yours. Where were you born?
I was born in Mother Cabrini Hospital on 2nd Avenue and 18th Street.
In Manhattan?
In Manhattan.
And your parents' names?
Anthony and Catherine.
Pardon me?
Anthony and Catherine.
Where did they grow up?
They grew up in Little Italy.
Here in Manhattan?
Yeah, we're here, right here in Manhattan, yes.
You're a New Yorker?
Yeah.
And what was your father's profession?
My father had a lot of professions. My father, during the Depression, he passed a test to become a postman, which was pretty tough. He was a printer, but then in the, I guess, early 40s, he and 5 of his brothers joined his father in the trucking business. They trucked meat. My grandfather started a business with a horse and wagon in 1900, carting meat from wholesalers to butchers. And during the post-war period, oh, excuse me. During the post-war period, that was a booming business, and so they had about 20 trucks, and they trucked meat around from the wholesalers to the butchers, and so he was basically a truckman.
Did you ever work in that trucking business?
Oh yes, I did.
When?
I worked summers and vacation, Christmas vacation from high school and college. They paid me $50 a week in cash off the books. I was rich.
By my standards at that age, you were. What primary and secondary schools did you attend?
I went to St. Patrick's Old Cathedral School down on 233 Mott Street. The Sisters of Charity ran that. And I went to Bayside High School. We moved to Queens, the country, when I was about 13.
What were your curricular and extracurricular interests before college? When you were a kid growing up, what interested you?
Stickball, baseball.
Were you good?
Football. I was a pretty good football player. I was a pretty good basketball player. Yeah. And I guess from about 14 on, girls.
What was it? What was it like? You mentioned Little Italy a couple of times. We all go to Little Italy once in a while. It's a kind of pilgrimage for all of us in New Yorkers. It's a wonderful place. What was it like to grow up there?
It was incredible. It was like a village, you know. Everybody knew everybody else in those days. And I remember my father coming home from work and coming up to me and looking at me sternly and saying, "What were you doing hanging out with Patty on a corner the other day? I don't want you hanging around with that guy." I said, "How did you know that?" He said, "Don't worry about it. I knew it." People talked to each other and looked out for each other. Also, I come from this endless Italian family, so we had, you know, my father had 6 brothers and 3 sisters. My mother came from a family of 6, and everybody was friendly and everybody knew each other. It was just a terrific place to grow up.
A good place.
Yes,
for you.
it was like a small town. It was really terrific.
When it came time for college, what led you to Pace?
Well, it was an interesting path. My father had this business, and he was really the guy who ran the business. And he asked his accountant and his lawyer, "Where do you think my son should go to school?" They said, "Well, he should have a profession. Pace is a great place to go to." I never even took the college boards. I came to Pace, and I took the entrance exam, and I came to Pace. It was just that way.
And what was your major?
Accounting.
And you have said, is this thing booming? Would you kindly write gain on us? Thank you. You've said the academic part of my education was challenging and taught me about hard work and ethics.
No, that's true.
Would you expand on that?
Well, it was coming into Pace. I had spent 6 months in the Air Force Reserves, and had sort of a life-changing experience there, because in high school I hadn't really worked that hard. But when I was in the Air Force, I saw some people that I respected greatly, but who had really come to a dead end in their career, and I just said to myself, that's not going to happen to me. I've got to really buckle down. So when I came to Pace, I didn't come off a stellar high school career. I had a stellar grammar school career. But when I came to Pace, I was trying to see Dick Matthews was my accounting professor, and he went on to become chair of the department, and then he was dean of the business school, the first dean of the Lubin Business School, and he was fabulous. I did well. I did well in his class. I did well in the other classes, and it gave me the confidence to know that I could do more. And working, I just worked so hard because I didn't know how hard I had to work, and so I just didn't want to stop. And that's what gave me the incentive to keep going. I worked hard, it was successful, and that just feeds on itself.
You've described the business courses as tough and demanding.
Yes.
Very demanding, very tough.
Very demanding and very tough. At the end of my sophomore year, I had taken a cost accounting course with a guy by the name of Professor Hutchison. And Hutch started the class. He'd look out on the 30 of us sitting in the classroom, and he'd look around and he'd say, you know, we'll be down to about 12 by the midterm. and we were, you know.
Yeah, he saw to that.
He saw, well, he just was tough. You had to do the work. He gave you, his lectures were not about the textbook. His lectures were about business. What happens in the business? What really happens? When you went to take the test, if you hadn't read the text, studied, you weren't going to pass. But at the end of that period, at the end of that course, I was really thinking about becoming a writer because I didn't know how well I was doing. I didn't think I was doing well at all. But I went and I spoke to Dick Matthews, and Dick spent, this was the end of the semester, he's chair of the department. He wound up spending a good hour with me, just counseling me about, you know, what I really wanted to do. Didn't tell me what to do, just kept asking me questions. And at the end of the day, I wound up getting a B in the course, which I never thought I would get. But he, you know, it was a demanding place, and it taught you the value that hard work gives you rewards.
How much of your PACE coursework was in the liberal arts?
50%.
By decree or by choice?
That was by decree, but I took some extra courses by choice. It was 128 credits then. I think it still is now. And I think I graduated with about 137 credits because I loved music and I loved history and I loved English literature. So I took some of the extra courses there.
Were those do you remember those courses with great affection?
Oh, yes, I do.
You said that they gave you a lifelong interest in reading.
Yes, it did.
I'm a writer. Reading what?
Well, I'm in the middle of reading the third of the Manchester Reed books about Churchill. I love reading history, I love reading nonfiction, but I also have a weakness for great detective stories. Nelson DeMille, Patterson, you know, those guys.
Yeah.
I read a lot of that on the plane.
Did you study philosophy here?
A little bit, yes. Philosophy and ethics. I took those courses in the summer at night. And the professor, you know, the course ran from 8 to 10. And there was a break at about 8:45. And the professor I had took that break, and he took us down to the bar for the second part of the course. And we'd sit around the table and really have great discussions around the table. I remember, you know, I'm a football fan. I'm a New York Giants fan. And I remember he was explaining Aristotle, the difference between Aristotelian and Platonic philosophy. And he said, now, when Jimmy Brown carries the ball and Sam Huff hits him, that's Aristotelian.
How did you come to speak at the inauguration of the president of PACE?
Well, I was elected president of the student government. I'd been interested in extracurricular activities because I thought that if you had good grades and extracurricular activities, you could get a job. And you know, that's what we were all going for. And it's okay, Jack.
Sorry, kid, we're doing our best up
right.
here.
So I got involved in the accounting club. I got involved in the student government, and I was elected finally in my senior year as president of the student council, and that was the year that Ed was inaugurated as president of the university. So they asked me to speak, and because I was the student was the least important speaker, they put you first, and I spoke in the city council chambers at City Hall. And it really led to my job at Arthur Young, because the guy in charge of hiring, the guy in charge of human resources, a guy by the name of Fred Horn, was in the audience. He had a doctorate, and so he heard me speak. So when I went for the interview at Arthur Young, the guys in the New York office interviewed me, and then they heard that the guy in charge of recruiting for the whole firm wanted to talk to me. So I think that's what led to my job offer.
I see. Your degree reads Accountancy and Information Science.
No, it's accountancy and business.
Oh, is
and
that
a
it?
Bachelor of Business Administration. That's wrong information. I didn't get the information science. Sorry, Jim.
My blue cards are never wrong.
Okay, I'm an information science major.
I was going to ask you what information science is. Summing up your school years at Pace, we're going to be back and forth to Pace. I know I'm going to get you into business in a minute. What tools did the university give you that have served you the most?
Well, the ability to deal with people. The courses were terrific, but the extracurricular activities, the intercourse with the students that I had, the social the discussions, they taught me how to deal with people, and being president of the student council taught me how to deal with competing views around the table and that sort of thing. So I think that was a realization of my talents that I never had before I came here. The academic side of it was what gave me confidence initially, because I saw I could work hard and do well. But the thing I've taken away most is that ability to deal with people, I think.
When did you become a partner at Arthur Young?
In 1969, no, 1971. It's 10 years. It was 1971.
Took you 10 years to become a partner?
Yes.
Not bad. Not bad. What a recommendation for this university.
At that time, I was the youngest partner in the firm.
And how long did you remain there?
I remained at Arthur Young for 20 years.
Good years?
Oh, they were terrific years. Again, growing up in a professional service firm in the business world teaches you a lot of things. And one of the great things about a professional service firm is that all the professionals want to help each other. In a corporation, and I've been in corporations, your peers are competing for the same job you are. The people underneath you want your job. But in a professional service firm where you're all partners and you're all trying to do the same thing, you can walk across the hall and ask a partner for advice, and you know you're going to get an unfettered, unpolitical opinion that's clear. And I love that kind of an environment. And that's what I grew up in at Arthur Young. It was a terrific place to work.
Arthur Young became Ernst & Young.
That's right.
And your successor as chairman of the board is at Ernst.
Mark Beska.
Right, at Ernst &
Young. We're keeping it in the family, Jim.
That's correct. And at the table during dinner, I discovered that the gentleman is the very one who comes on stage for Ernst & Young with the winning envelopes for the Emmys and for those ceremonies that we all watch. And we had a little discussion during dinner. I've been nominated 15 times and have not won.
Mark, you have his assignment.
Mark, if you look under your plate, you'll find a small sum of money. You have said that subsequent to that job, you worked 8 years as an executive with an American corporation involved in finance and entertainment.
Yeah, that was Polygram. It was 2 years. And then I worked another 6 years for the Rothschilds. I was in the financial.
Oh, I see. I see.
2 years at Polygram, which was in the entertainment business.
Yes, it was.
And I guess still is. And then I went to work for the Rothschild family, where probably the most successful merger they ever had was meeting Jackie there. Jackie and I met at Rothschild and
Jackie
got married.
Of course, your
my wife.
Yes. But the working at Rothschild had to have had its interesting moments.
It was terrific. I mean, they're a great family. And one of the great things about it was every Christmas and every birthday, you got a case of Chateau Lafite. So So that was absolutely terrific.
I bet it all. And what is Hildebrandt International?
Hildebrandt was my kind of airlock after I left the law firm. I retired from Chadbourne and Park, from being the COO at Chadbourne and Park, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. Hildebrandt was a consulting firm in the legal business, so I went to work for them for a couple of years.
Tell me about the law firm.
Well, the law firm was really interesting. At the end of my career at Rothschild, I had been traveling a lot. I was in the venture capital business, and I was putting in an incredible amount of mileage, and I wasn't seeing my son and daughter as much as I wanted to. So I decided that I would resign from that job because of all the traveling. And so I was looking for something else to do, and I had done well enough so I could take my time. And one of the things I thought about was in corporations, I loved operations. I loved making things work. But I also loved being in a professional service firm, growing up at Arthur Young. So when the opportunity came along to be the chief operating officer of a law firm, I thought that was something that I really would like to do, because that was a professional service organization, and I could deal with operations and making things work. So I spent 18 years there, and that was a terrific place for me to be.
Ooh. And what are you doing currently, professionally?
Well, I'm on the boards of a number of hedge funds. For Man Inc., GLG manages about $24 billion worth of funds. So I go to their board meetings, and I'm on the boards of those funds. I'm here,
Yes, of course.
spend time here. I'm doing some consulting for my law firm, the old law firm. They're in the process of moving from 30 Rock over to 1301 Broadway. They asked me to help negotiate the lease, which I did, and now we're negotiating getting the construction done, and they get moving in their new space.
Right.
And that keeps me pretty busy.
I'm sure it does. Now, let's return to your PACE Association. When and how did you return to PACE as a trustee?
Well, in 1969, Ed Mortola called three of us, Lydia Kess, Grace Lamacchia, who you saw on the film, and me, and they asked us to go to lunch, and we met with a bunch of trustees. At the time, PACE had, I guess, became a degree-granting institution in the late 40s. So there were no people who had degrees from PACE on the board. There were plenty of guys who went to PACE on the board because PACE Institute taught accounting. And at one point, PACE had more Fortune 500 CEOs that had graduated from PACE than any other place. And that's when it was an institute, because all of these guys who went to the Ivy League schools came to PACE to learn accounting. And so they then took that route up to become CEOs. So, long way of saying, there were people on the board who had graduated from PACE Institute. Charlie Dyson, Joe Lubin, all of those guys. But there was nobody that had a degree from PACE, so they asked the three of us to be special alumni trustees for a 3-year term. They forgot to count. So
Really? They just never came around and said your time's
no,
up?
it was staggered 3-year terms. We were going to, one of us was going to be on for 4 years, one for 5, and one for 6. But they never asked us off. Grace got off when she became a professor at PACE.
Yeah.
Lydia stayed on until she retired. Lydia was the first woman partner at Davis Polk, and she was a brilliant woman. And it was we were very lucky to be put on the board and to be exposed to people like Charlie Dyson and others who were president of Sinclair Oil and Hoover vacuum cleaners. There were different companies at the time. Everybody wasn't all under one roof.
Right.
The way they are today. And so
How old were you when you became a trustee?
29. 29.
And they just forgot to tell you to go away. Huh?
Yeah.
And how long is it you've served on the board? I've heard it tonight.
45 years.
45 years on the board. Is that worth a round of applause? Now, Neil, that has to be a record, is it?
I think it is. I don't know.
Longest
if anybody
serving
else-
trustee?
Yeah, I think so.
Longest I've ever heard of. And what have been a couple of the highlights of your board service? A couple of things that you will remember forever and ever and ever,
Well,
among many others.
Absolutely, the first time I was asked to be on the board was a great joy and a great shock, but it was terrific. Carl asking me to become chair was a huge highlight for me. Ed Mortola, working with Ed was absolutely fabulous. He built this place. He was an educational entrepreneur. Peter Drucker wrote about Ed Mortola in his management books.
Yeah.
About the kind of guy he was, and working with him was terrific. And working with Steve has been very, very good. Steve is terrific, and has been a huge highlight for me. But really, working with everybody on the board and working with the people here it's just been satisfying. It's been such a big part of my life, and it's been such a great part of my life.
You have said the symbiotic relationship between my career path and business and my involvement at Pace was amazing to me.
It's true.
Would you expand a bit on that? Amaze us.
Sure. At Pace, I was exposed to, at the board level, to really strategic issues and to people who had done a lot of thinking about strategy and people who had thought a lot about tactics. As I was moving along in my career, I could take what I learned at Pace, and kept learning at Pace, and apply it to the work I was doing. And so to me, it was just completely intertwined. It was a terrific educational experience during and after I left Pace. So had a lot to do with what I did and how I did it.
Finally, you've said, I embrace what Aristotle defined in the Greek word oikonomike. Would you tell us how and why that word is important to you?
Well, there's a word in Greek which is translated as grammatistix, which is not translatable into English. And what it really means, there's no word for it. What it really means is the pursuit of wealth for its own sake, for the sake of wealth, for getting more money and more wealth without a purpose. And every philosopher has said that that's to be frowned upon, Aristotle, Plato. The Greek word you used is the acquisition of wealth for living a good life, to have enough wealth to live a good life. And that's, to me, is an exceptional way to define how one should live. The accumulation of wealth so that you can live a good life, however you want to define that good life. And
Yeah.
that's what it means to me.
I'll conclude with you as I've concluded with every one of my Inside the Actors Studio guests for nearly 19 years now, with the Pivot questionnaire. If you've seen my show, you know that at the end of each show, I explain that there's a man named Bernard Pivot in France who, for 26 years, ruled the intellectual life of European television from France on France 2, with two shows. One was called Apostrophe, and the other Bouillon de Couture. And I used to watch him. You can still see him on Channel 75, the CUNY station. But nobody's ever come up with the money to translate with subtitles underneath, so it's in French. And for years I watched it, and it was just, and still do whenever I can catch it. He's retired, but they show the old episodes, and they were incomparable. He was, if you've seen, how many of you have seen Inside the Actors Studio? Well, what I do on Inside the Actors Studio is a feeble attempt to to approach what that man could do. He's my idol. And when I began the show, in the very first episode, I borrowed what he had borrowed from Marcel Proust, who had borrowed it from other people in his time. It was called, at the back of Vanity Fair, it's called the Proust Questionnaire, and I call it the Pivot Questionnaire. And it is a lengthy questionnaire that is intended to reveal, like a Rorschach test, the personality and the persona of the person taking the test. In his case, he had some of the greatest minds in the world on his show, and they always were subjected to this questionnaire. I borrowed it from him, I should tell you, and then in every episode I announced that this is the Bernard Pivot questionnaire and so forth, in the vain hope that somebody would hear my program, watch it, and would come up with the scratch to put subtitles on the one that was on CUNY, so that people who don't speak French could enjoy the genius of this man and of his guests. I failed in that. Nobody ever came up with the money, but I have to this day never failed to quote him, never failed to mention him, and to give him credit. And so, giving credit to Bernard Pivot, now I will ask you the Pivot questionnaire. Neil, what is your favorite word?
It's a new one. I learned it in Australia. It's a place where they keep platypuses. It's called a platypussery.
Sometimes I ask my guests to explain their choices. I don't think I'm going to ask. What is your least favorite word?
Can't.
Yeah. What turns you on, excites you, inspires you? It could be anything. It could be anything from a cup of coffee to a piece of music. What turns you on?
Jackie.
What turns you off?
Anybody that says you can't do something.
Yeah. What sound or noise do you love?
Miles Davis.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Screeching subways.
Now the question that the world has awaited. We're in 125 countries inside the Actors Studio, and world round, they wait for this moment. I've been told. What is your favorite curse word?
Well, Jim, I have some grandchildren in the audience.
I know. Well, you can work around
And so
it.
I don't want to expose them to the word. I don't want to expose them to
I
the
have
word.
never seen such eagerness on a young face.
I don't want to expose them to the word itself, but I'll give you a clue.
Yeah.
I once had a dog named Fangool.
Okay. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I would have loved to be an NBA basketball player.
What profession would you not like to participate in under any circumstance?
Taking care of large animals.
With a shovel?
Yes.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Come on in and meet your family.
Thank you very much for a wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you so much, Jim. I wish I'd known all that before I accepted this gun. Well, we have a few more gifts for you, Neil. First of all, here is the gavel and the T-shirt that I promised you before dinner. And next, we have an official Pace proclamation, which is here in this beautiful bound book, which I'd like to read. It is with profound gratitude, deep respect, and enduring affection that Pace University honors Aniello A. Bianco, 61, upon his retirement as chair of the Board of Trustees. During a chairmanship that spanned 14 years and 3 Pace presidents, Mr. Bianco led a vibrant renewal of the board achieving greater transparency with the wider PACE community, adding more than 20 new board members, including the first faculty member in the board's history, and establishing key committees to help PACE advance in excellence and reputation. He gave the university strength and spirit during the best of times, like the joy of commencement at Radio City Music Hall, and the worst of times, as in the aftermath of the tragic events of 9/11, when he walked from classroom to classroom, consoling a deeply shaken community. On that day, and on all the days of his chairmanship, he gave PACE the full measure of his character, his energy, and his devotion. His contributions will be felt by generations to come. In 1996, PACE was proud to award Aniello Bianco an honorary Doctor of Commercial Science. Today we celebrate him anew, and we look forward to his continued service to the students, the faculty, and the staff of PACE University. He will forever serve as a role model and inspiration to the Board of Trustees and to all who know and love him. Now, Neil, this is not the only proclamation that we have for you. When word got out that you were stepping down as chair, we received proclamations from Mayor Bloomberg, Senator Schumer, Governor Cuomo, and many of others. And we have put them together in a package for you. They will make for fine reading, and all of you will be delighted to know that I am not going to read them tonight. Now, those of you who have been at prior board dinners probably wonder why we're having dinner in this room. That is because this is the very last night that this room will bear the always curious sobriquet, the multi-purpose room. I'm delighted to announce that this room will henceforth be named the Aniello A. Bianco room. Just like Neil, this room embodies the spirit of opportunitas. It is a room for all seasons and all needs, as Neil is a man for all seasons and all needs. Everyone is welcome to use it, students, faculty, staff, and our neighbors in the community. And that generosity of spirit is matched by Neil's generosity of spirit. I cannot think of a more inspiring name for a room that brings together the PACE community in warmth and in camaraderie. And now it is my privilege to introduce the man of the hour this evening, Neil Bianco.
Wow. Boy, having a room named, that video, what a night. I'm going to thank everybody here for that. You know, when I first saw the invitation to this dinner, I thought the words "with gratitude" were entirely appropriate, but not for the reason it was on the invitation. I was thinking about my gratitude to PACE for all it's done for me. Thankful for the faculty members who were there, some of whom are still around, who awakened my brain to experiences I just never knew existed, and changed me and challenged me in ways I didn't think possible. I'm grateful for my classmates, for the camaraderie, intellectual stimulation that I felt. PACE has always felt like home to me. I'll be forever grateful to Ed Mortola. Ed's idea of putting some of us on the board when we were young and impressionable was terrific. And I have many more reasons to thank him, not the least of which was his personal interest in me and my career. I'm appreciative of my fellow trustees over the years for the example they set in being dedicated to something greater than themselves, and for which the only compensation would be the satisfaction of a job well done and giving back. They demonstrated that there's real value to psychic income. And when you think about it, it's the only income that Washington hasn't figured out how to tax, so it's a great thing to get. I'm lucky to have been exposed to all the past presidents of PACE and all the influential alumni who have schools named after them. I've known and worked with every one of them. Joe Lubin, Charlie Dyson, Gus Leonard, and Ivan Seidenberg. And I won't list all the presidents, but I knew them all from Bob Pace to Steve Friedman. I'm really glad Carl is here. I'm grateful for him affording me the opportunity to become chair of this great institution in 1999. I think it's been a singular honor to serve in that capacity. It's been an experience that has sometimes been extremely challenging, always intellectually stimulating, and a great responsibility. More particularly, I want to thank those trustees who were my consiglieri during that time. Many of them are here tonight. They know who they are. They were always there for this university and a tremendous help and comfort, especially during our most challenging times. And I want to reserve a special note of thanks to the current faculty and administration. We have just completed an exciting 5-year run of mainly positive developments. We have today approved the strategic vision that will completely remake the Pleasantville campus. These are tremendously exciting events that will continue to make PACE a leader in higher education in this state and in this country. When I started at Pace College in February of 1958, no, I'm not going to go through my 55-year history month by month. Don't worry about it. We had 4,000 students in total, 1,400 during the day. The rest were at night. They were part-timers. We had one location at 41 Park Row. When I look at our footprint today with campuses in Pleasantville, White Plains, Midtown, and downtown Manhattan, I'm amazed at how far we've come geographically and academically. We've developed many new, you've heard about them, many new and important academic programs, programs that are elite. And I have to highlight our amazing scholars, our Fulbrights and Watson Award winners. That's been a recent development and it's been terrific. Homer and Charles Pace, the founders of Pace Institute, would never have thought that 100 years after they founded it, we would have one of the elite performing arts programs in the country. And we thought Matthew Broderick's role in The Producers yielded the only successful singing accountant. But at Pace, we go from accountants and lawyers to singers and dancers to nurses and everything in between. We do it all. And on a personal note, I want to thank Steve Friedman, my friend and colleague. He's built a solid management team, attacked and solved issues that others thought were insoluble. He's made it much easier for me to retire as chair because I think Pace is on the right track and he's the guy that put it there. And I congratulate the trustees for appointing Mark. Mark, you'll do a terrific job. He is very interested in Pace and its students, and he's just an all-around great guy. So everybody, you know, you'll work with him and you'll find out what a terrific fellow he is. There are many complicated issues that beset higher education in the United States today. But I believe this university is on a path to greatness, the motto Steve gave us, and we have the team in place to achieve it. And finally, there's gratitude for my family. My wife, Jackie, who's a great partner in life, a sounding board for all my crazy notions, objective and insightful evaluator of them all. She always provides me a loving and sympathetic ear, and she makes my life so easy that I can dedicate the time to a place like Pace. And to my 5 children and 7 grandchildren, the 5 children and their significant others, who provide the joy and the happiness and the love that will always be the most important thing in my life. Thank you.
in conclusion, which someone once described as the sweetest words in the English language, you know, we university presidents have a special relationship with each other. So a few nights ago, in thinking about this, I communed with Ed Mortola's spirit. And I asked him about Neil. And I said, how come Neil has been on this board so long? And Ed Mortola said, you know, I don't know. I asked him to join the board, and he just stayed. And then he said, and I'm very, very glad you stayed. So before we break up, I want to remind you that next week we have 4 commencements. Neil Bianco will be at all of those commencements, and I hope each of you can attend at least one of them. They are really very special occasions. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. Thank you, Neil, for everything you've done, and I know you will continue to do for PACE. Thank you all, and good night.